For this video, we're going to go over addition and subtraction of real numbers. Now, you might think this is rather easy, possibly, but the reason I'm going over this is because my students always make a lot of mistakes with adding and subtracting positive and negatives and multiplying positive and negative numbers. And so we have to make sure we have this concept down perfectly so we don't make little mistakes and lose points because of small little mistakes. So let's talk about adding, subtraction, positive, and negative numbers. The first thing you always want to do when you add, subtract, positive, negatives is to change all subtractions into adding the opposite. That's the first thing you always want to do because it's just so much easier to add than subtract. Alright, and then the second two things are just rules that can help. Now if you don't want to memorize these rules, we're going to show you other reasons of where they come from and why they are true. But these are two rules that could help. Basically, when you're adding or subtracting, basically adding because you changed it all subtractions to add, remember? If the same signs, meaning if they're both positive or both negative, then you sum them, which means add, and keep the sign. If they're different signs, meaning one positive, one negative, or vice versa, then you find the difference, means subtract the two, or what's the difference between them, the spread between them, and use the sign of the larger of the two. Alright, let me show you kind of how this rule would apply. Then I'm going to show you a visual way of doing this, which could really help. So, hopefully you know 3 plus 5, the signs are the same. We don't have to change, there's no subtractions. So 3 plus 5, well, hopefully you know that's 8. Sorry, don't mean to be dumb on saying that, but it's just, most people, that's good. So 3 plus 5, 8. Let's do the easy one to start with. Now, if we have a negative plus a positive, we don't have to change any signs, but they're different signs, so we find the difference. So the difference between negative 3 and 5 is 2, and then you use the sign of the larger. So the larger of these is a positive 5, so my answer is positive. This one, oh, it's a subtraction, so we're going to make an addition of the opposite. So we're going to make this a plus and make that a negative 5. So now we have a negative 3 plus negative 5. So they're the same sign, so we sum them and keep the sign. So what's 3 plus 5? That would be 8. And since they're both negatives, we keep the sign. So it would be negative 8. Okay, again, we have a minus. So we change minus to a plus. The opposite of 5 is negative 5. We have a 3 and a negative 5. Well, different signs. So the difference between these two is 2. And the larger is negative 5. So it takes the sign of the negative 5, so it's negative 2 is the answer. Alright, again, a minus becomes a plus. Change that negative 5 to a positive 5, and then we have a really easy problem again, 8. Sweet. Both signs are positive, so we add them, keep the sign of the positive. Okay, this minus is a plus, and then the opposite of negative 5 is a positive 5. So we have negative 3 and a positive 5, so they're different signs. So difference of these two would be 2. And what's the sign of the larger? Well, the 5 is larger, and so positive, so it's positive 2. Alright, so that's using these properties, how I would do it. Alright, now I also like to give people a visual of where it comes from to make sure they understand how these positive negatives, why they do what they're doing. So here's the visual. Basically, when you have, for instance, 3 positives plus 5 positives, here's how I kind of think about it. 3 positives plus 5 positives. If you add all that, you have 8 positives. Okay. Next, I have negative 3 plus 5 positives. Alright. Can you see how, hopefully, you can see how these all are going to cancel out? Become zeros, and negative and positive become 0, leaving me positive 2. Bam, positive 2. Yes! Okay, next. We have a negative 3 plus a negative 5. Do you see how we just have 8 negatives? Bam. Good. Sweet. Just combine them all. Okay, I have 3 positives plus 5 negatives, and hopefully you see here, boom, 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 my answer would be -2. Matches up. Good. All right, 3 plus 5, same as the first problem, so I'm just going to skip that one, it's 8. And here we have -3 plus 5 positives. See, 3 negatives, 5 positives. Boom. We're left with +2. So these little positive negatives can help, but they're not very practical if you're doing really, really, really big numbers. So you might not like that, but it's up to you. The positive negatives are a good way to visualize. Another good way to visualize, I'll do it like a couple just real quick. -3 plus 5. If you think of it this way, -3, let's say we move back -3. We lose -3. We lose 3, like in a football game. Lost 3 yards. And then we gain 5, so then we're going to go, oh, we're going to go forward 5, so we're going to move forward 5. Wouldn't that leave me from my beginning point 2 forward? Hopefully that kind of makes some sense. Here's another example. Let's do this one. If I have 3 positive, all right, and then I lose 5, oh, I lose 5 yards. So I gain 3 yards, lose 5 yards. Okay, so aren't I 2 negative from my beginning point? So if this helps you, you can make a little number line going forward, backward, and think of it that way too. There's lots of different ways to do adding, subtraction of positive negatives. Just the biggest thing though is change all subtractions to adding the opposite, and then you can memorize these rules or think of pictorially what's happening. Now, I also want to give you a word problem related to positive and negative integers. So let's take a look at this. If you have a $20 gift card for Target, say you got it for Christmas, yes, 20 bucks. And you buy something for 32 bucks. Wait a second. I only have 20 bucks and I buy something for 32. So how much do I now owe? Because I'll have to pay some out of my pocket. Wouldn't that be $20 plus, because you have a plus 20, but then you minus 32 because you bought it. So wouldn't that leave you a -12 that you owe? See how positive negatives come out in real life, kind of? If you owe $100 on your credit card and make a minimum payment of $30, then how much do you now owe? Well, you have a negative, you owe 100, you pay $30, so you still owe 70, negative O. Okay, if you owe $40 on your credit card, and then you purchase something else for $30, then how much do you owe now? Well, you owe this much, and you're adding more debt. Wouldn't that be -70 debt altogether? So there are a whole lot of real life scenarios as well that have positive negatives embedded in them. I hope this kind of shows you a little bit of a couple. Good luck with positive negatives and be very, very careful. It's so easy to make little mistakes.